Hey, Danny, check me out.
Uh, are you wearing an Ocean Pacific tee?
Yep, got it on eBay.
Is that a skateboard?
Yep, found the old plank in the attic.
Is that a half pipe in our backyard?
I've been working on it all day.
Jessica, this doesn't seem safe. You're not even wearing knee pads.
Oh, those are for noobs, Danny. Okay, you ready? I'm gonna go do a 720 gazelle flip.
That's very confusing language, but it does not sound safe.
Okay, are you ready?
Okay.
Are you watching?
Yeah, I'm watching.
Okay, here I go. Ooh. Oh gosh.
Oh my gosh. Oh, Jessica.
Oh, this is such a bad idea, Danny. Why'd you let me do this?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, this is
oh my
such a
gosh.
bad idea.
You're really injured.
Oh, it hurts. I think I broke every bone in my body.
But how are your knees?
I don't know. Those seem fine. There's a bone underneath one of them, though, that is protruding out of the skin. Can you just please get help?
But your knees are fine.
Yes, Danny, my knees are fine. Please get help.
Oh, that was a close one.
A pink tux to the prom. Without a care, what could possibly go wrong?
Jessica.
Yes.
Are you ready to travel back in time to a magical land?
I am so ready.
A land of Coca-Cola.
Yep.
And shopping malls.
Yeah.
And Nirvana, who had their first album in 1989.
Oh.
Are you ready to go back in time to a magical world of Green Day, who formed in 1986?
Oh.
A magical world of construction workers and, like, cars. Remember Cars?
Yeah,
Oh,
I remember
I miss
Cars.
Cars. Remember televisions? It's like 2 skits in one episode.
I remember music still on MTV.
I didn't say MTV. I said television. The concept in and of itself.
Well, I know, but sometimes you would believe that MTV was the end-all be-all of the 80s. Just, because pop culture.
Yes. Although for me, the MTV was all about the 90s. Remember the 90s? Let's talk about the 90s instead today. No, we are talking about...
What we should be talking about is Forget and Not Slow Down as we record on the 10-year
we're talking
anniversary.
about... Today's episode is about In Love with the 80s, parenthetical, Pink Tux to the Prom. But we're recording on the day in which Forget and Not Slow Down has its 10th anniversary. And everyone on Twitter and the social media is all excited. And I'm like... Oh, is that today?
Yeah.
Oops. So I guess we could have done a Forget Not Slow Down
We
song.
knew it was coming up. We didn't know.
Well, I knew it was this year because everyone's been talking about it all year.
Yeah.
Like everyone's been asking Relient K, and they replied to that one, Hoops, whoever runs the official account, replied to that one tweet, said, is there going to be a Forget Not Slow Down anniversary tour? People have been asking that all year, but I didn't know it was October 6th.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when we're recording, October 6th, 2019.
But no, instead, I begged Danny to please let us do In Love with the 80s this week.
Last week we talked about the board. We talked about the whiteboard, and on which Jessica has the 4 songs that she's looking forward to doing the most. And last week's episode was quite heavy, talking about God, the song God, and talking about our backgrounds and church and our beliefs and stuff.
So I thought, let's just do a really fun, goofy song, which happens to be my all-time favorite Relient K song.
Yes. Also, we could have done Nancy Drew this week because the CW has a new Nancy Drew show the day this episode's going to come out. There were so many timely songs we could have done, but instead we're doing In Love with the 80s because the 80s are perennial.
Yeah.
You can do them anytime.
Yeah, the 80s are timeless. Everybody always loves the 80s. Mm-hmm. In fact, I was like, let's do this song because this song was a hit. And Danny was like, Jessica, this song was not a hit. And I was like, whatever, lots of people love it. Guaranteed.
That's what I said about This Week the Trend. This is the opposite conversation.
Yeah,
When we did This Week the Trend, I was like, oh, that's a hit. And you're like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And you were right and whatever. No, this song is actually like a minor hit. It was on the Employee of the Month EP. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yep.
So they were possibly pushing this song, either Relient K or Goatee Records were possibly pushing this song to be like a big song for them. But then when in researching this song on YouTube, one thing is I did not find a lot of covers, which usually is a sign of a song not being a big hit, right?
Right.
But what I did find was a ton of cell phone footage of this song. And that's kind of a aggregator of a song being popular. Is like
Cell phones aren't very 80s, Danny. I mean, they are, but like more like car phones and like those giant
Video
brick
phones are
phones.
not- yeah.
Video phones, not so much, yeah.
But what you find with this song, when you search it on YouTube, is a ton of people uploading Relient K playing this song, particularly from like 2007. I found
wow,
a dozen
weird.
with both the Johns and Dave on drums. They played this song a lot in that period.
Huh.
And tons of people uploaded single videos of just that song from concerts they went to, and the girls in all these concerts were singing the song. So this is a bit of a hit because I think people love this song. Like I said, like in all that live footage, everyone was singing
good.
this song.
It's so good.
But we do have more top of the show business before we get to that. So this week we got one email. It's really long. It's from he loves Relient K. I think we're gonna read it next week, depending on what song we do, because we have a lot to get through this week. So
Yeah.
John Savage, I apologize, we can't get to your email this week, but we will get to it next week or soon.
Did you say John Savage?
Yes.
Any relation to 80s icons Ben or Fred? I guess one's more a little bit of the 90s,
but the Boy Meets World one is more of a 90s.
Yeah.
But no,
Still
I don't
counts.
know. Why am I saying no? I have no idea. Ben. What's your name? I'm sorry. John Savage. Let us know. Are you related to the Savage Brothers? I have no idea.
Or
We'll find that out next week.
current icon Derek Savage.
Oh, yes. The creator of Cool
Cool
Cat
Cat.
Loves You and Cool Cat Stops the School Shooting
And Cool Cat Saves the Kids.
and Cool Cat Loves the Kids. Cool Cat, this kid's superhero. That's the best movie ever made. Oh my gosh, if you're not familiar with Jessica and I love...
Derek Savage. John Savage wrote us the email.
Jessica, you're just being savage on me. It's ridiculous. Yes, but we'll get to that email next week. So one thing I wanted to mention is last week I said after we talked about God, the song, I said I would put out a Twitter poll and ask everybody, do you believe in God? That's just the question, just taking the line right out of the song and asking, do you believe in God? I specified on Twitter a little bit more. I said, we said at the end of this week's episode that we'd run this poll. Aside from your specific religion and belief system, do you believe in God? And of our listeners, or at least our Twitter followers, who knows if they're listening, 42 people voted, and 76% said they do believe in God, no matter what their belief system might specifically be. 14% said no, and 10% gave the it's complicated that I also said I'd give.
Right on.
One other minor thing in the Relient K world is, yes, today is... what time is it? It's 6:30 on the West Coast on Forget Not Slow Down Day, right? Mm-hmm. And like around 6 o'clock, I coined FANSD. FANS Day. Get it?
Yes, I
It
get it.
looks better than it sounds saying out
Yep.
loud. But it's the Forget Not Slow Down acronym, but I took the D and turned that into day.
Yep.
And I'm like, this is what everyone should have been using all day. I was super excited.
Did you tweet this?
I did tweet it, yeah.
Right on. Nice.
But on Forget Not Slow Down Day, John Warren popped back up onto Twitter. And he's just...
appropriate.
Yes. Because like everyone was tweeting about the album. Like Ethan Luck was tweeting about it. John Schneck was tweeting about it. I guess the only ones that weren't clearly tweeting about it were the Mats. But John...
Well, no, they've been real quiet so that nobody bugs them to be like, hey, guys, what's the official track listing?
That's the other thing we had to talk about. We'll talk about the track list after that. So John Warren popped up and he's like, thinking about getting back on Twitter. Anything happened while I was out? Someone catch me up, and I was like, ooh, gotta tell them about the podcast. There's no way I don't sound thirsty. There's no way we don't sound thirsty.
Yeah, Danny even took my phone to do a tweet from my account.
It's true. Here's the thing. Obviously, John Schneck's been the only one who's interacted with the podcast. I just want everyone to know we exist. I just want... Yes, it's thirsty. I'm sorry. But I just want some validation, accreditation that, like, the band knows the podcast exists. Here's the thing.
We're not going to bug you.
Yes, that's the thing. This is what and I have not said this online because I'm like, there's no way to tweet this without sounding like I'm forcing something, but I'm going to say it on the podcast right now. I'm friends with a lot of people who have band podcasts. Mm-hmm. There's Blink 155, there's Magnified Pod, there's This Might Be a Podcast, he does the They Might Be Giants podcast. There's one, and there's something else we have to talk about. Our friend David Park, who created the end theme song for us. Mm-hmm. He did the instrumental version of, and the punker version of Crayons Could Melt on Us for our podcast. He now has a Jimmy Eat World podcast that's starting up this week. All of those podcasts want or have gotten people from the band to be on the podcast.
Right.
We might be one of the only podcasts that are specifically about one band that have no interest in interviewing the band on the podcast. I just want to make that clear. Again, if I say this in social media, it sounds like we're trying to trap them or something. Like, hey man, we're cool. Let me say this with my voice and make you believe it if you ever hear this. We will never bother any of the members of Relient K to be on our podcast. No. As it is, we have one guest planned, right? And he's a friend of ours. Mm-hmm. Who's in another band.
A good bit down in the future.
Yes, and we have other listeners who are asking to be on the podcast. They're like, oh my gosh, you're a Relient K podcast. We had someone pop up recently, just this week. We had people a couple weeks ago. And I want to have, like, new friends that we've made online be on the podcast. I would love for that to happen. We don't know what that is yet. We don't know, do we have guests on for the full episode? Do we just do a little segment at the beginning or the end or the middle? Either way, we're only having like friends and people we've met who want to be on the podcast. We're not bothering anybody for an interview. No. That's never happening. We are riddled with way too much anxiety to ever let that happen.
I mean, if one of the members of Relient K, past or present, wanted to come on and they like really wanted to, like they listen for
like they don't have any other platform.
They have no other platform. They're just like, hey, you guys seem fun. Let's come on and have a conversation. I mean, we're not going to turn them down.
No.
But we are not actively. Yeah,
that's up to you, Jess.
We're not actively seeking.
So John Warren pops back up on Twitter. I was like, just gotta make them know about the podcast. Just gotta put that out there. As it is, if Hoops is the one who runs the Relient K Twitter account, as people have said, I'm sure he's already annoyed with me because one of my main ways of promoting the podcast is just to like everything on social media that is tagged Relient K.
Right.
So those people who made that post know we exist. It's up to them to decide, are they interested or not? But that's like the free way to do this, right?
Yeah. Do we have any more top of the show business? I want to get into the song. I'm excited. And I feel like we've been talking about other things for entirely too long.
I suppose that's it. Oh, the track list. That's the last thing to mention. So yeah, days ago, the band was like, at this point, it was like 5 days ago. They're like, voting is closed. The track list for the special vinyl will be announced tomorrow, and it's been days. And people
That's like
so
every
upset.
Time Anonymous, the hacker group Anonymous is like, we've got something big coming, guys. We're releasing it. This is going to break the world. It's breaking the internet, and it never happens.
That's got to be our next social media post.
Now I'm a little bit afraid, though, like that Anonymous is going to come after me.
Like Anonymous is supposedly such a big deal that anytime... because I don't know how to spell the word anonymous. So anytime I ask Siri to put the word anonymous into something, they always capitalize it. So Apple thinks anonymous is the anonymous, not that I would just want the word.
Right.
Anyway. So yes, track listing. We're waiting on the Relient K track listing. I tweeted a joke and I was like, hey, maybe Relient K is holding back the track list because they're giving it to us as an exclusive.
Right?
But folks, it wasn't a joke. I didn't tell Jessica. Just kidding.
Whoa.
I didn't want to string you along for too long. She'd be so mad if I kept going with it.
Could you imagine, though? So welcome new listeners who Danny lied to on the internet, and you think we're about to give you the exclusive track listing.
Welcome as you're hitting unsubscribe and cancel and delete.
Yeah. And they badmouthed Anonymous.
So yes, last top of the show business also is, I just mentioned it, but I just want to emphasize it one more time. Our friend David Park, who recorded our outro music, he has a new song-by-song podcast for the band Jimmy Eat World. It is called Jimmy Eat Pod. I don't think I actually said the name of the podcast, so good on mentioning that. Please subscribe to them. Super excited about that. So, yes. And that is our top of the show business. So, Jessica,
Woo woo.
what are you wearing to the prom?
Let's see. I wore it was in burgundy, but I wore a red dress, a dark red dress.
That's so nice that you
And a
have
half up, half down hairdo.
We didn't really have a prom at my school. Not for Christian reasons, although it was a Christian high school, but because our high school was 10 people.
Well, so was mine, but here's what we did. So my graduating class was 6. Mm-hmm. And...
But was your school a Christian school?
No.
Yeah.
So our junior year, we didn't have a prom my senior year or any of the other years. Just one year, my school decided to partner with a homeschool co-op group that also wanted to do a prom. And we did it all together. Mm-hmm. Although they would not, it was not Christian, but they would not play certain songs. Like my date, he requested for them to play Yeah by Usher, which was a very popular song at the time. And they were like, no, it's too dirty. And they wouldn't let us play it. But, okay, so there was a guy, so my friend who I talk about every now and then when it comes up, who I went to my first Relient K show with, who also was into Relient K. She went to the same prom, and her prom date wore pink pants to the prom. Ooh. Not a full-on pink tux, but pink pants. In fact, I have a picture for you right here, Danny.
Are you serious? You've had this ready? Oh my gosh. I know, I've seen that picture of you at the prom, and whoever the hell that is, I'm going to kick his ass.
That's my prom date.
I know, I'm going to kick his ass. Oh,
Here's
wow.
the guy,
I've never seen these pictures.
Now, he did not wear the pink pants because of the song, although my friend and I like to joke about it because we loved Relient K.
Right. It looks like he's wearing a Mickey hat. The guy,
it does, yeah.
But it's actually just a Mickey thing on the back.
Yeah.
Because you grew up in Celebration, Florida,
Yeah.
which is the town that literally Disney built.
Yes.
But then they unincorporated away from the Disney Corporation.
Yeah.
But not while you lived there.
Correct.
Anyway, it looks like that one kid is
So
wearing
this guy is wearing white shoes, like white Pee Wee Herman shoes. Pink pants, a white belt, a purple and white striped shirt with the French collar and cuffs, and a white tie.
Huh.
And of course he has frosted tips because
Nice.
mid-2000s.
Well, my school, that's amazing. Well, my school didn't really have a prom. We had like a dinner thing as like a prom. Oh, I'm going to kick his ass. It's Jessica's prom photo with her date. Yeah, we didn't really have a prom in my school. We had and again, it wasn't like a Christian thing. It was just like how awkward will this be if the 10 people who know each other.
Right. You saw.
So it was Danny, like a nice. So we did like a nice dinner thing at my school.
Right.
So sorry, I saw what?
Okay, you saw the group of girls and the group of boys. This was the total of people from my school, and actually 2 of these people, one of them is my cousin. So these 3 on the end were part of the homeschool co-op.
That one looks like your cousin Justin.
That is my cousin.
That is your cousin Justin.
Justin was part of the homeschool co-op. He's also developed a taste for Miller Lite. So we had...
I thought it was just, he just looked like a general Florida guy.
6 of us. 6 of us represented our school.
Nice.
At this prom.
Represent.
Actually, I take it back. There's 2 more who weren't in this photo. So,
okay. Not 8. Pictured Mrs. Eisenhower.
Such a great reference.
So that's wonderful.
An almost 80s reference.
The closest thing I ever had to a prom was you and me went to Awesome 80s Night.
Yeah,
Which is
we
one
went
of-
to the Awesome 80s prom in New York.
Was it called a prom? Or
It
was.
was called Awesome
Oh.
80s Prom.
That's right, because there were characters in it and stuff.
Yep, class of Wanna Get High, 1989.
So, you know, there are these, so just for people who might not know, there are these franchised parties around the country that are like these like special ideas for parties. Probably the one that's popular right now in sort of the adjacent circle of this podcast would be Emo Night, right? So it's like you go to Emo Night in different cities, and I don't know if like someone actually owns the copyright of that.
Right.
But it seems like they're all related or whatever or something like that. But apparently each city of Emo Night has a different, like some cities have real emo and some cities have pop punk.
Do some cities have Emo Phillips?
That would be the best idea ever. That's such a good idea. You go to Emo Night and it's just an emo. Everyone's showing up in like their My Chemical Romance or whatever, depending, and then they walk in. It's just an Emo Phillips stand-up routine. That's such a good idea. That's such a good idea. I don't even know where to go from that. Oh, right. So there are these franchise concept parties,
Right.
and one of them is called the Awesome 80s Prom, and it happens in multiple cities. And when we lived in New York, we went to the one there, and you actually go, you show up in costume, you go to a party, there's a bar, it's like set up like a prom, and then they have basically these interactive characters walking around.
And they do a little bit of a show because the
Yeah.
characters get named King and Queen, and they have all
Yeah.
the stereotypes there.
And then like I think like the bad boy shows up to win back the preppy girl or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but Jessica insisted I wear something pink when we went to this.
Yep.
We're living in New York and I'm like flat broke, right? Like I don't have the money, and like finding so I was like, I cannot buy a pink tux, I cannot buy a pink suit, I can't buy a suit, right?
Right.
So I'm like, so I plead this to Jessica, and she's like, well, if you find a pink tie,
Yeah.
the only pink tie I could find, it was probably like a Joseph A. Bank or something.
Yeah.
And it was like $40. It was so much money. And I had to get it. I was like, this makes her dream come true. I wore a pink tie to the prom.
Yeah.
We got to find that photo and put it online when
Yes.
this episode comes out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was our pink prom, whatever. So the song we're talking about this week is called In Love with the 80s, Pink Tux to the Prom, from the album Three Lefts Don't Make... I always get this
Two
wrong.
lefts
Two
don't make
lefts
a right.
don't make a right, but 7 years ago do.
Exactly. I wish that my old MySpace was still around, because I 100% had a quiz of the like stuff you should know or stuff you should know about me or whatever. And one of my questions was, because those were multiple choice, and one of my questions was, who got a bloody knee on a skateboard in the half pipe in the backyard that Tuesday night?
Nice. Yeah, I love this song. This is a great song. I remember, like I said, like I've talked about this in the past, but all the EPs, the early EPs, Creepy, the original Creepy EP, Employee of the Month, I got all those when they were new, and I would, and 2000 ADD, and anyway, Employee of the Month EP was the one that I listened to relentlessly. Like I actually loved that CD in and of itself, right? Like when I packed my CD wallet for the car, I would think in terms of like, what are my longest CDs and what are my favorite? And there's only so
Right.
much room in my CD wallet and whatever, you know what I mean? So I had this whole regimen of like every couple days going to my CD collection and switching stuff out. But the Employee of the Month CD is one that I always was listening to because I loved this song. I loved For the Band. Let me go grab it real quick. I should have it on the desk. It had Penny Loafer Saved, a Penny Loafer Earned.
I love that song so much.
See, and these are all these are among the songs that I knew really well before Bird and the B-Sides came out.
Yeah.
So when Bird and the B-Sides came out, you loved it, but I think they, like I've talked about before, I think they remixed these songs for the Bird and the B-Side version, and I wasn't happy with that, because I used to listen to the Employee of the Month EP continuously. Yeah, so this is a song that I heard many times. Now, you know what's funny, and I just figured this out today while doing my research. Also, I did my research on this song super late. Normally I do it a couple days before, so I have more time to like find other things. But like right up to the last minute, I was looking for stuff online. And on the Employee of the Month EP, they spell 80s out like the word.
Oh, wow.
But then on
Oh, yeah.
Two Lefts, it's spelled with the numbers.
Oh, yeah.
80S.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Huh.
and I figured that out because I went to the songs page for Discogs to see if this was like on any compilations or any soundtracks or something. Mm-hmm. And when I go to it, I'm like, wait, they didn't list Employee of the Month EP, right? Like it wasn't in the list of all the places this song has appeared. Then I find out that Discogs doesn't realize, because one is spelled the word and one is spelled the numbers, that they're the same song.
Huh.
So what's up there? What are you in love with, Relient K? You can't be in love with both the 80s, the word, and the 80s, the numbers. Or can you?
That's funny. I was just trying to look because when I typed this into Apple Music the other day, I accidentally typed in love with the 80 instead of in love with the 80s, and it gave me totally different songs.
Oh, okay.
Like Relient K didn't even show up, so I was just trying to do it again now because I didn't take a screenshot on my phone when I did it, and I wanted to look at it again, and it didn't do it this time. It came up with Relient K and Goat Single by Lil TJ.
Yeah. I said yeah like I know what you're talking about. I meant that more like, yeah, that's funny.
You a big Lil TJ fan, babe?
I sure am. Welcome to the internet's number one Big Little TJ. Wait, I'm Little TJ. Welcome to the internet's number one Little TJ fan podcast, where we go song by song. So anyway, that is In Love with the 80s. Thanks for listening. No, we have so much more to talk about. So, getting into this song specifically,
Did you ever own an Ocean Pacific Tea? Because you experienced a little bit more of the 80s than I did, so...
Yeah, you know what? I didn't... I've never even actually learned what Ocean... I just, from context clues, I was like, oh, Ocean Pacific is some sort of
A
surf.
brand.
It's a brand.
Yeah.
But I never looked any further into it. Like, I remember other brands like Bumware. Remember Bum?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought they were maybe like Hobie or Hobby. I always just assumed it was Hobie because that's another word for mushroom.
Uh-huh.
And they have like a mushroom iconography in their stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't remember Ocean Pacific at all. The only place I've ever heard this is in this song. I believe that it existed. It's just, it never hit me. And even after they sang it, I never had any interest to go look up Ocean Pacific.
Were you more of a Bugle Boy?
I was more of a Buster Brown.
Oh, okay.
No. Actually, in the 90s, I loved Airwalks.
Yeah.
I owned the same pair of Airwalks twice in a row because my mom bought me this one pair of like beige Airwalks, and then I had my own money, and one day I went to Newberry Comics and they had that exact same pair in my size, and she hadn't bought them for me at Newberry Comics. She bought them for me at some shoe store or something. But they had the exact same pair of shoes on clearance. And like, I'm 13 and I have the money for them. I'm like, I'm gonna buy my own shoes for the first time. I was super excited.
This is the most Danny story ever.
But then I take them to school, I put them on, right? And I go to one of my friends and I'm like, these are brand new shoes. Like, they look exactly the same as my old ones, but they're brand new. And he's like, I don't believe you. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't believe me?
I love that they were beige too. Not like I had a pair of Airwalks that were like that shiny plastic
Right.
coated material,
Uh-huh.
and they looked like they were like galaxies. I had some of those. I recently actually bought a pair of Airwalks because we went to a closing down Payless just to see what that was like.
All right.
And they had like a pair of Airwalks in my size, and I was like, well, this is a throwback and I love it, and I actually wore them today.
Very cool. So, when this song came out, I'm like, oh, this song was among the reasons why I loved Relient K. Mm-hmm. Because I've always loved bands that have sort of high concept songs, or each song kind of has its own character, takes you to a world. But specifically, I like that in the punk or pop punk or maybe alternative or definitely ska sort of realm. Like any band where each song has a very distinct character.
I'm a big fan of story songs.
Yeah.
All those like 1970s like story songs like classic rock and their own sort of songbook. I love those songs. So I think that's why I'm really drawn to Relient K and specifically this song.
So I loved this song when it came out because it's just it's fun. And the thing is, I really feel that Relient K was way ahead of the 80s nostalgia curve, right? So this album comes out in 2003. Jessica and I have had this discussion many, many times about 80s nostalgia. 80s nostalgia pretty much started in 1992, right? Like 80s nostalgia
it's just always
never
been
went
there,
away.
yeah.
People did not want to leave the 80s, and people have never left the 80s. Nowadays, 80s nostalgia is super ubiquitous. We're still in 2019. And the conversation Jessica and I have had is the difference between 90s nostalgia and 80s nostalgia. 80s nostalgia, as far as I'm concerned, and maybe people have a different experience, but it really kicks off with The Wedding Singer, right? In my world.
So good.
Which is 1997. They're not even 7 years away from the end of the 80s.
Yeah.
And they do this big 80s nostalgia thing. Like nowadays, you still have the Goldbergs and stuff that like is basically copying that formula. They even did that crossover episode.
Yeah.
That was,
yikes. My mom loved that episode, and Danny and I were like, ooh. Although we love both of those things separately, it should be noted that The Goldbergs is the only sitcom Danny and I watch.
Yeah. It's one of the only network shows we watch.
It is. That and Bob's Burgers, and that's like it.
I still watch The Simpsons. I've still watched
That's
every
right.
episode of The Simpsons ever. Probably. I'm sure if there's one I've missed, I'm never going to go back and be able to find it. Yeah, so anyway, 80s nostalgia, as far as I'm concerned, is like starts in the 90s. Really gets going in the late 90s, and people are already nostalgic for the 80s. 90s nostalgia doesn't really start until like the last 4 years or so.
Yeah, even sooner it feels like.
There were times where 90s nostalgia tried to catch on. Like I remember there was like I remember in like 2009, Blink-182 gets back together from being broken up. No Doubt comes back together. Creed comes back from, well, even though they're more of a 2000s, but they are late 90s. Like basically these sort of late 90s bands
Dan,
and
did
mid-90s
you welcome
bands.
Creed back with Arms Wide Open?
I did not. Sorry, but thank you very much. I did not. But I'm just saying, I remember this time specifically thinking in the late first decade of the 2000s, all of these 90s bands are getting back together. Is this the beginning of 90s nostalgia? And it wasn't really. And the thing is, like Jessica and I have talked about this so much, 90s nostalgia took forever because it's hard to peg one specific feeling and look of the 90s because the 90s was really like 2.5 decades.
Yeah. I would say 3.
Yeah.
It's like 3 different decades. You have the early 90s, you have the mid 90s, and you have the late 90s.
And this is different times entirely.
Speaking of the Goldbergs, this is why Danny and I were like, Schooled, which is a spin-off.
Right, of the Goldbergs.
Set in the 90s. You can't say it was 1990 something and you were downloading Nirvana off of Napster. Like, It doesn't make sense.
Well, people would download
but
Nirvana off Napster.
You weren't going to a Nirvana show and then coming home.
But then they wouldn't go to a Nirvana show with their Napster CDR and the thing. They wouldn't go see Blink-182 and like Tiffany or something. Like that's you can't mix that stuff together. Like the Goldbergs has those moments where it's like they're going to see the 1989 Batman. It's like, well, that's 1989's Batman, so we're already at the end of the 80s. Like, no, it's like one folded decade of time, but you can't do that for the 90s.
The only thing that bothers me about the Goldbergs is that Erica, the sister, in her bedroom has a Christian Slater poster. I'm like, Christian Slater was not a thing until 1989, and he's much more synonymous with the early 90s.
We will get back to the talking about the song. But the last thing, Jessica's told me this, and I understand exactly what you're saying. We will get back to talking about the song, but my theory about why 90s nostalgia took so long to get in place, because now when you go to Urban Outfitters, it's all like Saved by the Bell t-shirts. Yeah. There's this neon thing. They figured out a version of the aesthetic 90s to now market. Like all these EDM artists have it, and like there's, it's out there in the world now in marketing and stuff. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I think 90s nostalgia took so long compared to 80s nostalgia is that people out of the 80s the 80s being their heyday, came out of the 80s with tons of money.
Yep.
So they were like, I have tons of money and influence. I want products and things that remind me of the happiest decade of my life. Give me more 80s. Keep the 80s bands around. I will give them money.
Yeah.
Make all the marketing around 80s nostalgia. I will give it all money, right? But 90s kids come out of the 90s with not that much money
Yeah.
and not that much influence. Now they sort of do, right? Now,
But not even to the extent. Because you don't look around and go, oh, 90s culture everywhere, like you do with 80s. There is no Stranger Things of the 90s.
right. Maybe 90s kids are finally getting money because of YouTube and Instagram. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're all like these late millennials or early millennials, the older millennials have got all this money now because of the internet. Like the internet, the early people who got rich off the internet were Gen Xers and very old millennials who were like getting that from like e-commerce and stuff, like the original .com bubble and all that stuff. But now the people who are becoming super rich off the internet are Instagram influencers and stuff, and they've got the money.
I feel like it just actually passed by our generation. Like Instagram influencers and stuff, those are like young millennials. Those are people who are kids now.
I don't know, like pretty much all, and I'm not just talking about me because I make MXPX memes, but all meme makers are in their 30s. Like a lot of them are.
But are you making bank?
I'm not saying, yeah, they are. The big meme people are. I'm not, because I'm just making MXPX memes. But I'm just saying.
Are you saying that MXPX memes is not a lucrative business?
It's not. MXPX, it's time to pay me. Come on. I'm just joking. But back to this song. One thing now listening to it, so all that talk just now helps the base for this about the song. When I listened to this song, it was so ahead of the 80s nostalgia curve that we now have, right? That it doesn't even sound super 80s-ish. Like nowadays there's vaporwave and like retrowave and all of this really heavy 80s nostalgia stuff.
Yeah, like the Midnight.
Yeah, like there's a real nostalgic feeling in those songs. Like you're in a Kmart, like in the middle of the racks, like waiting for your mom because you're bored. Like there are these new artists online who have figured out pegging the 80s sound, whether it was actually there. Because when you listen to old 80s music, it doesn't sound as heavily handed as vaporwave and stuff like that.
This has that like synthy keyboard thing.
It does, but it's like a little looser. Like there wasn't really a thing for Relient K to be harping off of for this, because like, I mean, 1985 by Bowling for Soup does not have an 80s sound. It's just about an 80s person.
Yeah.
But that song didn't even exist yet. Like they were, I don't know of other songs that were about the 80s the way that this one is.
Right.
So they didn't have another predecessor. They were like the proto. This is like proto vaporwave. This is like, we're gonna do an 80s throwback thing, and it's just gonna sound like 2003 pop rock. This isn't even pop punk. It's like pop rock. It's almost like, it's more like the Weezer side of Relient K. I often talk about how I think of Relient K more of like a Weezer than a Blink 182 or an MXPX.
Right.
And they've just added
retrowave. Vaporwave's a little more like 90s. They like to incorporate
now
those.
Who's the influencer? Now you're gonna tell me what shipping means? And thirst trap? You're gonna explain that to me? All those words I don't understand. So yeah.
Did you ever cut class through the first floor window?
I did not. My school was in a basement.
That's dark.
No, it was like just like a church.
No, I mean, it's literally dark.
It wasn't. Well, yeah, I guess it was.
That line always reminds me of the, even though it's 90s, the Aerosmith music video where Alicia Silverstone's coming out of the...
Right, it reminds me of that. It reminds me of that
good.
exactly.
Crazy.
Another thing in the lyrics here, and I do have song meanings up, but I was just thinking, listening to this song, I'm like, I guarantee you there's maybe not a majority, but there is a large and a larger than you'd want section of kids from 2003 all the way up to today who have heard this song and have no idea what Breakfast Club means. So they hear President of the Breakfast Club, and they're like, oh, I guess in the 80s you got together with your friends and had breakfast, and you called it the Breakfast Club. Maybe they've heard the phrase.
No.
I don't know.
I feel like all those kids are probably influenced by Riverdale, and like Riverdale has definitely done like a Breakfast Club thing before.
But kids don't know when those shows do things. They don't really know. Like Glee would rip off things, like they'd actually rip off people's versions of covers,
right?
And there was like no, like they wouldn't get special attention because Glee ripped off that specific cover. Yeah,
I'm trying to give kids these days a little more credit.
I do think kids today, certain cool kids today, know shit. I'll bleep that out, but whatever. They know shit because there's the internet. Like we didn't have the internet as kids, so if you, I mean, I did have the internet later as a kid.
Right.
But if you want to learn something, you have it in your hand and you can learn everything about it, right? So whether it's movies or music or whatever, and like that specific track of that you want to figure out, horror movies or punk music or whatever, like there are kids out there who are cool, but still there are tons of kids out there who are not cool and they just go with whatever's on the front of like, I don't know, AOL.com. What are they?
Well, I decided to Google President of the Breakfast Club to see what the kiddos would see if they Googled that. And Andrew Yang talks about universal basic income benefiting from tech.
What?
Because apparently there is a YouTube channel called Breakfast Club on Power 105.1. Oh yeah, this is like a whole thing. Isn't 105.1 here in LA?
I don't know. Who listens to the radio? Video killed the radio star, as a famous 80s song once said.
Kids aren't going to know because I Googled it unless they are doing this based on location.
Uh-huh.
It's all about whatever this talk show is.
Oh, there's a talk show called The Breakfast Club?
On the Power 105.1.
So unless you're geo-locked, unless you got that VPN to learn about John Hughes, you're not going to know nowadays.
Why the Breakfast Club is a must for 2020 Dems.
What?
Inside the Breakfast Club, a must-do stop for 2020 contenders.
Oh, there must be some place called the Breakfast, like a diner or something, where politicians go to mingle with the the people.
I don't know, but finally, if you scroll far enough down, you get to the Wikipedia of the Breakfast Club John Hughes movie.
There you go. See? Told you. There's a famous diner in Manchester where all the politicians like have to go to like shake hands with people. And I went to when I lived in New Hampshire, I went to that diner like twice, and I'm like, this diner's okay. Also in New England, there aren't a lot of diners, so that's probably why they go to that one. Well,
I think this is referring to whatever this show is. That's like it's like for rappers and politicians. I don't know, where rappers and politicians meet.
I think I've seen those Breakfast Club billboards now that you mention it.
Charlemagne the God is on there sometimes, I guess.
Is Little T-Boy on there, or what was his name?
DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Amanda Seales, who's currently trending.
Welcome to the #1 Breakfast Club fan podcast. See, so unfortunately, like, if it's not on the front page of Snapchat, and unless you're a cool kid who is like, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to Google all this stuff and get in a rabbit hole, like, I don't think kids are, like, going into these kind of online rabbit holes that they should nowadays.
Do you know what I fall into online rabbit holes of?
Because it would only lead them to porn.
No. Do you know what I fall into online rabbit holes of at least once a month?
What?
Dead malls.
Oh, right.
Looking at old 80s malls on YouTube and like people like urban explorers going through them and stuff now. Like, oh my gosh, I will fall into a hole all day on that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have the song meanings.com up. I didn't find anything on Genius, really.
Okay.
But it's... So this person says, I really feel like the 80s is a metaphor for Christ and how we... I'm just kidding.
I was going to say, whoa. Because, it's really funny. I did find in my Google deep dive, I found a couple websites that were like, praise and worship lyrics in love with the 80s. And I'm like,
oh, yeah.
In love with the 80s is my favorite praise and worship song.
Jessica said last week, the only 2 songs she's ever genuinely felt like putting her hands up in praise and worship are God Off Air for Free and In Love with the 80s.
It's true.
You know what's funny is because we've mentioned many times, I don't listen to a lot of like specific CCM music. Like it's pretty much just Relient K and Switchfoot and Supertones are like the closest to the CCM core that I would ever listen to. When it comes to anything else, if they're a Christian band, like they're categorized online and aggregated just as punk bands. Like if they're Christian, they're like Dogwood or like MXPX or Five Iron Frenzy. Like those will have Christian tags in them, but apparently they're more tagged just for being punk bands. It's because of Relient K, listening to so much of them, Spotify tells you your top 4 genres. Mine used to be alternative, punk, something else, I can't remember, and like reggae, right? And one of those got kicked out for Christian because I've been listening to so much Relient K.
Nice.
That
Ska? Was ska one of them, or is that considered reggae?
I don't think Spotify doesn't have a ska
okay.
specific genre. I mean, you can search by ska, but it doesn't. They don't have like a tab just for ska. On March 28th, 2003, X Your Star X said, "This song rocks my face off. It makes me want to dance around. All 80s like. Huh. Oh, and if I had a date to the prom that wore a pink tux, I might kiss him or something." Was
Me
this
too.
you?
Yeah. Me too. What was that username again?
X Your Star X.
Me too, X Your Star X. Is that Star 80?
No, I don't know. Sorry, I got distracted by this next one, which I think I have to read, although I'm really just floored by it.
Oh,
In
wow.
2007, I'm not going to read their name because I don't know where they're coming from with this comment. In 2007, someone said, "So what? He is gay and he's going to wear a pink tux to say so?"
Whoa. Whoa.
I never took that away from the song, but I guess
Whoa.
there are so many stories in the news over the last several years of like transgendered people wanting to go to their school prom as who they represent themselves as,
Right.
and their school won't let them, or they're like banned for it, or they force them to go as their birth gender and all that stuff. So that is something in the news. It's definitely in the last several years. And 2007, I mean, I guess there's always been stories about, you know, people
But that
wanting
was
to go
that was
if
a
they're-
staple
if
of the
they're gay.
80s. Just people wore like funny colored
Yeah, it's an
tuxedos, like
80s thing.
powdered blue tuxedos. I think it even started in the 70s.
This comment was so like mind shattering. I totally forgot about the 80s aspect of it.
Yeah. Like that.
Of course.
The 80s were bright and colorful, man. Oh my gosh, so weird. That's so aggressive.
Someone replies and says, it adds their name and says, and again, this is 2007, says, "If he's gay, why would he put in the song, 'And I look up to my big bro, because in the 80s all the ladies grabbed his hand and wouldn't let go?'" And then somebody else comes back and says, "Yeah, he's totally gay. That's so way he has a girlfriend?" I can't even, it's so... Now look, I make a lot of typos, but when it's a very, very important conversation, I wish there weren't those kind of typos. That's so way he has a girlfriend.
Listen, anybody can wear pink. I make Danny wear pink sometimes. I just bought him a really cool Hawaiian Levi shirt that's pink, and it has pineapples and parrots and all sorts of fun stuff on it. Like, pink's for everybody. In fact, they used to dress boys in pink and girls in blue, and then suddenly we had to change all of that, like in the bazillion years ago.
And this is true. Republicans used to be the liberals, and Democrats used to be the conservative, and then they got switched. I'm not even joking. That's true.
Wow.
That's completely true. Like, basically, each party was, like, slowly morphed to the other side.
Wow.
And that maybe that'll happen again someday. I don't know in this climate if it will or won't. To wash that out of our brains, Neon Hoodies 1023 said in 2009, "Love this song. According to a quiz, this is my theme song in life. I guess that means I'm independent and don't care what other people think of me. Seems like that's the message of the song."
I would feel like this song isn't about individuality because I mean, nowadays, because everybody loves the 80s. Like, it's a big deal to love the 80s, so everybody loves the 80s. You're gonna be an individual, love the 90s.
Yeah.
Just kidding. No, everybody loves the 90s now, too. All great decades. Solid decades.
Now, here's a really good comment. Montimus in 2005 said, "It's a great song, but the lyrics are slightly wrong here. Instead of when he's the president, it's when you're the president. So on and so forth, but still a good song." What? When you're the president of the Breakfast Club and you're not hesitant to fall in love.
You can use your to me in first person.
Yeah, but this person said it's just when he's the president of the Breakfast Club. I always read that line as he's not specifically saying that person over there is the president of the Breakfast Club.
When
he's
anyone
saying
is
when you yourself become the president of the Breakfast Club, don't be hesitant to fall in love. Well, hold on a second. I just want to look at the booklet. It's when you're the president of the Breakfast Club and you're not hesitant to fall in love, to throw it away, to fall in love with the 80s. He's not talking, he's saying you.
Yeah.
He's relating to the listener now and saying, I've given you all this information about the 80s and my brother Jeremy, who I look up to, and his skinned knee. Now you good listener, you must fall in love with the 80s. You must become the president of the Breakfast Club. You must wear a pink tux to the prom. I've given you everything I can. Take this and go. Go forth and be 80s. I don't know where the original comment is, but somebody here in 2005 said, "I agree with the other poster. I find 80s music and movies depressing. People never understand why when I tell them that."
I don't understand why.
I kind of sometimes find 90s stuff depressing because because even though I love the 80s, I remember the 90s, so all the specific fun I had as a kid, that's what I want to go back to. Mm-hmm. But also, when I listen to Nirvana and I listen to, like, what are some other bands, like Bush and Silverchair, Smashing Pumpkins, I sometimes connect that to the angst and, like, pubescent rage of, like, being a boy going through puberty and, like, just wanting to kiss a girl and just wanting to, like, not be filled with all these hormones. Like, and that's a real negative, like, basically it reminds me of almost becoming an incel. Being a little baby incel, and, like, so when I listen to Nirvana, and sometimes that stuff depresses me. So maybe people feel the same way about the 80s. Well, that's song meanings. Let's get the hell out of there.
Yeah, oof, that was a dark corner I did not want to turn down in this episode.
Song meanings has never been that dark before. No. That's very strange. Like, we had that one where the person hated Softer to Me because it's Christian, and they had that big, and people had that big raging fight about how, like, hey, I'm not a Christian, but if you want to have Christian music, that's fine. And other people were like, Christian music's stupid. That was dark, but it was kind of funny in hindsight. This was just, this was a
aggressive.
So, Jessica.
Yes.
The 80s.
Before
we get into live versions and covers and fun stuff, is there anything else you want to talk about the 80s?
Danny.
Yes.
What are your top 5 things you love most about the 80s?
Oh. Yes, Jessica wants us to be a listicle podcast now.
I just thought it would be fun for this episode.
I'm gonna call this character Jessica. Jessica wants us to be a listicle. So my 5 favorite things about the 80s. Number 1, video stores. Remember video stores? You could go and hold the tape in your hand.
I didn't even put that on my list. I should have put that on my list.
Actually, what I miss about the 80s and the 90s is not just video stores and media and record stores being everywhere, but like there being video stores, there being like a video section and a music section in other stores.
Yeah.
Like going into Sears and finding basically a record store inside Sears, going to Kmart and there being basically a full record store inside there. Like, yeah, nowadays you can go into Walmart and Target and there's a section of media,
But so
right?
small,
especially the music. Like, there's slightly more books and maybe still some movies around, but you would go into a Bradley's and an Ames and it's, like I said, Sears and Kmart, and there was basically a separate full record store in all of those stores, and it was amazing. Like, you could find media and music and videos everywhere.
Maybe I didn't put video store on here because to me, being born in the late 80s, like, video stores to me are the 90s.
Right.
So that's why I think I just didn't connect that. But yeah.
But no, video stores are 80s for me.
Yeah.
I miss my childhood video store, and I wish I'd known it was going to go away when it went away. In a way, nostalgia's kind of a poison. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's weaponized nostalgia and, like, marketed nostalgia, and I hate that. Like, basically, I feel the same way about nostalgia as I feel about people's, like, faith in Christ. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
no.
No. If you want to, it should be someone's personal feeling, and if you meet other people who want to hear you and share that, then yeah, have a conversation and stuff. But when it's like turned into a marketed thing and like shoved down people's throats, whether it's your any religious belief really or nostalgia, that's when I get grossed out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't mean to make this into another religious thing that we were trying to get away from last week. It's more a problem for me, honestly, with nostalgia. It's like, especially like the video store talk. Like, there's so much video store talk nowadays. And I'm like, I remember, stop talking about it. I think about it enough. I don't need you talking about it. It's not cathartic to hear every podcast and every YouTube channel mention the same thing about video stores over and over and over. I remember them.
Maybe that's why, at least for me, and maybe for other people too, especially people who are younger than us, why the 80s really connects to people is because now you have the people who lived through it and really loved it and have a healthy amount of nostalgia for it. Mm-hmm. And then you have new people who are coming in and like falling in love with a time they never knew.
Right.
And like, I think that's why I can have like a disconnect. So like on my top 5 things I love about the 80s.
Mm-hmm. I only listed 2.
Number 4 is the commercials. Because I don't really remember 80s commercials. I remember 90s commercials. So I will often go on YouTube and watch compilations of 80s commercials and even 70s commercials because it just brings me back to this really beautiful time that I don't have super clear memories of. I think my first memory is around like 3 or 2.5. And I do remember an 80s McDonald's. And it's like my very first memory.
Right.
I won't go into it now, but I do specifically remember looking up at like the board and the different foods and drinks and all that stuff and the pricing. And I have a very clear memory of that. But I think it's just...
You're reminding me of another thing that I feel about nostalgia is how every generation thinks that they're so unique about it, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I think this song that we're talking about this week comes from a really genuine, fun place. Mm-hmm. But when certain people, especially nowadays, where it's like, you kids don't know anything. You don't have video stores. You can't go into it. But like, first of all, older people in their 30s and older, you have no idea what kids today, how they experience things. It's always like, oh, it's instantaneous and they throw it away immediately. Like, yeah, maybe, sure, but you have no idea what's going to develop from that 10 years from now, 20 years from now from those kids, right? Mm-hmm. That's how I always try to look at it. But when people are like, oh, when we lived with a piece of media, I had to spend my money and I had to force myself to like it because I wasted my money on this CD that sucks and I forced myself to like it. That doesn't sound good. You know, it's cool. You have Spotify and you go and you find your favorite songs, and the very best songs to your brain, they keep being played. But if you listen to thousands of songs one time and you don't live with those bands for the rest of your life, those aren't the bands you wanted to live with. We have no idea if we're 30 or older what kids today are really thinking, feeling, experiencing. Just like when I was a kid in the 80s and 90s, my parents who grew up in the 50s and stuff, and maybe there's some, because there was no internet dividing us, there's slightly more of a common ground, but still, parents from boomers and greatest generation, they didn't understand 80s young kids and
Right.
Gen Xers and stuff. They had no idea.
No one ever understands the next generation.
I remember so many cartoons like Animaniacs, and like that's the only specific one I can think of, but so many examples of 60s and 50s nostalgia being shoved down my throat when I'm an 80s and 90s kid.
Right.
Because those are the people in the media creating the media, and they're like, the 50s and the 60s were the best, right? Actually, 50s nostalgia kicks off, like 60s and 50s nostalgia kick off really quickly in the 70s, just like how 80s nostalgia kicked off almost immediately in the 90s, right?
50s nostalgia
So there's
was
something
really
there as
big in
well.
the 80s, because look at rockabilly
Right.
and that sort of thing. Like, there was a lot of that, like, greaser culture came back.
Right. But I remember in school being taught about the 60s so much. Like,
Yeah.
it's all they ever talked about. The 60s, the 60s, the 60s. There are other decades. When you're... That's it. And I think I made a tweet about it once. It's like only 90s kids will remember the 60s nostalgia that was shoved down their throats because that's who was running the media and education at the time. Like, I wonder if kids today are even taught about the 60s as heavy-handedly as I was when I was in elementary school. Probably not.
Right.
Oh, Forrest Gump is like the height of 60s nostalgia. A 1990s movie that is all about how great the 60s were, right? That's essentially what it was. And Field of Dreams was very similar as well. Like, they talk constantly about, like, the Haight-Ashbury stuff. Like, hippies were constantly talked about because, like, hippies are the center of 60s nostalgia. Whatever. My point is, like, you got nostalgia for your time. Big whoop. Everyone's had nostalgia, especially now as more and more media comes on. Whatever.
Who has nostalgia for the early 2000s, though?
Hey, I'm not done talking yet. I'm just kidding. I don't know, but we'll find out because, like...
I don't really go on Tumblr a lot. Like, I haven't probably in a year or two.
Right.
But I remember being on Tumblr, like, a couple years ago and seeing, like, teenagers, like, who were in high school at the time.
Right.
Being like, man, you guys were so lucky you got to go to Simple Plan shows. And I'm just like, who are you? Who are these people remembering that as, like, the greatest thing ever? Like, I went to a Simple Plan show in high school and it was fun, but I'm like, I can only imagine how much more epic it would have been to see Smashing Pumpkins in the 90s or to have gone to see Def Leppard in the 80s. Like,
Right.
That seems like way more iconic. I feel like we just haven't had a lot of really great iconic culture from 2000s on. April. April snoring.
2000 to 2009 didn't even feel like a decade in my life. Like when New Year's 2009 came along, New Year's 2010 came along, I was like, oh, we just changed decades. But I don't remember that because when like New Year's 1989 happened, I remember that really strongly. Like 1999 was huge because obviously there's also Y2K stuff happening all the time. But whenever a decade changed, if you've ever seen Boogie Nights, they were very excited about New Year's 1980 until William H. Macy shot himself in the head at that party. So like decade New Year's were always huge, but I don't personally remember there being a lot of talk in the media of like, this decade is wrapping up.
Yeah, everything's kind of felt squished together
Yeah.
for the past 2 decades.
Right.
Like, and also, fashion is a thing you can always go to be like, oh, this is iconic for this decade.
Right.
This is iconic for that decade. What is different? Nothing. Everybody, and like, I have trouble seeing where we're going with fashion other than throwbacks. Because
Sometimes
90s stuff's really popular right now in throwback fashion. But like, for the most part, people are wearing like hoodies and stuff, and there's some 70s throwback. It's like we're actually right now we're throwing back to like all the previous decades that have come before. There's like retro wives and stuff like that.
Right. We're splintering our fashions just as much as our media has splintered. And the streaming wars. Who will survive? No matter who wins, we all lose the streaming wars. Now, as we've done this podcast and we've looked at videos, and by the way, we have a lot of videos to go over this week.
Goodness.
We had to cut some of them out. But as we have been looking at videos from 2003 and 2009, there are distinct looks in those times, specifically in the pop punk world. A 2009 pop punk person who wants to look like Good Charlotte or Hayley Williams, like you're like, oh, that's a 2009 person.
That's
right
true.
there.
I will say that I look back at high school pictures and I'm like, oh, that's very mid 2000s.
Yeah, I mean, and early 2000s is very clear. Like when I
Yeah.
find these Christian
Because
camp
it's still
videos,
kind of 90s.
yeah, I find these Christian camp videos. I'm like, oh, that's 2003
Creepy.
right there. They got the hookah shell necklaces, puka
Yep.
shell or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, there are, and like we've watched some movies from the early 2000s recently. In the last couple, by recently I mean the last couple of years, where it's like, is this really 2003? Because they look like it's 1998.
Yeah. So top 5 things we love about the 80s. So my number 5 was no internet. So it feels more innocent. Like, what is that? And we touched on this a little before, but like, what is it that draws everyone back to the 80s? It's whatever that feeling is that, and I don't know, maybe it was just not being so connected. I think that the world in general actually had a lot less anxiety when we weren't all so connected.
But you know, there was also the Cold War, and like
That's
people
true,
actually,
yeah.
because we were kids.
Yeah.
And I say this all
Are
the
you
time.
a Cold War kid?
They rock. Yeah, I don't know, because like we've become adults into this time, and we think, yes, obviously the world is more splintered now politically and socially, and the internet helps and hinders that. But you know, I'm pragmatic when it comes to this stuff, babe. What can I say? I'm a pragmatic dude.
All right. Well, 4, I said the commercials because such good commercials.
Uh-huh.
Like, who doesn't love Time to Make the Donuts and Where's the Beef and all those great iconic commercials? What are some iconic commercials from nowadays? There's the Mike Camel thing for, what is that, Geico? The gecko with the Geico. All the Geicos, I guess, or whatever.
Yeah. There's a little bit of luck, but that's only in New York.
Yeah. Not any commercials I particularly want to revisit.
Back in Florida, there's that Asian guy with the eye patch that's telling you to come buy a washing machine.
That was early to mid 2000s, at least for me. Appliance Direct.
Appliance Direct.
Number 3.
You have to have TV to know what commercials are popular nowadays.
That's true. Although there's commercials on Hulu and YouTube and stuff. Number 3, the malls, which is something that I know a lot of people connect to. That was like sort of a big centerpiece and set piece of the most recent season of Stranger Things, which I know you have not watched because that falls into your dislike of nostalgia.
Right.
Number 2. Okay, number 1 and number 2 are, I just want to say they're a tie. It was such a huge toss up. I said 2 the movies and 1 the music because as much as I love movies and I love movies of the 80s, I stop and I go, could I live without movies of the 80s? If I really had to, or could I live without music of the 80s? And it's so hard to choose. It's a real Sophie's choice. It's real hard. I'm sorry, that went to a dark place. I take it back. It's really hard to choose, but you get the point. It's very hard to choose.
We as a society need even though, well, is Sophie's Choice based on a true story? I don't know.
I don't know. I just kind of assumed it was.
It could be. Let's look that up real quick.
What can we use as a different phrase? What can we use as a less upsetting metaphor? Now I feel like I need to switch it again, and it's the movies that I can't live without. I don't know. I'm just keep going back and forth. It's a tie.
Sophie's Choice is apparently fiction. It's fiction, and it's 19.
Okay.
And the movie was from 1982, so that's a big 80s movie. Remember, everyone remembers Sophie's Choice. When people think 80s, they think Depeche Mode and Sophie's Choice.
So music.
Music, yes. Jessica asked me to put together a list of my top 5 favorite 80s songs. But first, I want to hear hers.
Oh, okay.
I want to hear yours
Do you
first.
want to go? How about we go, I say my 5, you say your 5.
Sure.
You want to go back and forth?
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, we had to put these in order?
They don't have to be in
Okay.
order. I put mine in order, I think. But again, so this was a thing that I was like, we're going to do this. This will be a fun thing. We'll do some lists for this episode because we've never done it before. Let's give it a shot. And then I went, this is so hard and stressful. Why did I do this to myself? So I've got so many honorable mentions. This was really hard because the 80s, such great music. Just such great music. So I picked for number 5, High on You by Survivor from 1984.
Nice. For my number 5, I picked Lion Ass Bitch by Fishbone. It's a great song. That's pretty much the beginning. That's like the real beginning of ska punk. A lot of people think like, oh, Operation Ivy created ska punk. Like, really, Fishbone created like the majority of the ska punk bands you know of are basically emulating that first Fishbone album. Like, they're the first ones that really, like, when you listen to that song I mentioned with the swears in the title, which I won't bleep because it's not gratuitous, because it's the actual name of the song. Or any of the other songs off that album, Party at Ground Zero, like that was the creation of that ska punk sound.
I was
Operation
excited
Ivy's
for your
another thing.
list because I knew you
You'd
were
go
going to
into deep
go.
dives.
I knew you were going to do ska deep cuts. I had a feeling.
I was hoping I would make you mad with it, but oh man.
No. I knew what I was getting into.
Okay.
So number 4, Waiting for a Girl Like You from Foreigner, 1981.
Nice. For my number 2, I picked the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. Hope I know. For my number 4, I picked the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. Hope I Never Lose My Wallet, which came out in 1989. That's my favorite song off that first album.
Nice. Number 3, I went with The Power of Love by Huey Lewis and the News. I think that was 85.
For number 3, I picked They Might Be Giants, Don't Let's Start. Shifting away from the ska thing a little bit.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's a good one. That's one of the They Might Be Giants songs I know.
Nice.
Number 2, I have a song I love so much, and it needs to be in every 80s Halloween party, show, movie, whatever. If you have a scene set at a Halloween party in the 1980s, you need to be playing Dead Man's Party by Oingo Boingo from 1985.
Well, for me, I also picked an Oingo Boingo song.
Nice.
I picked Ain't This the Life off of their first EP.
Nice.
1980, just by the skin of the teeth.
Yeah. Yeah, I listened to a lot of yacht rock, and there were a lot of songs where I was like, was this 80s or 70s? And they're like all 1979.
Right.
Even Foreigner had a couple albums in the 70s, and like same with Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper is an artist that I tend to think of as an 80s artist, but he's absolute 70s. Like most of the Alice Cooper songs you know and love are from the 70s.
Isn't Poison like his biggest song, and that's 80s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like his hair
I'm pretty
metal
sure
song.
that, yeah, that's his big 80s song, yeah. Which, like, that's an honorable mention. So, okay, number 1, Hysteria by Def Leppard, 1987.
Nice.
I love that song so much.
And my number 1 is Up in Heaven, Not Only Here by The Clash from Sandinista, also 1980.
Nice.
And I like that song because I think that's the promise of what Sandinista could and should have been. Because Sandinista is sort of their like most reaching artistically album, and in a lot of ways it's half-baked and it's super long. It's like, was it a 3-record set when it was originally on record,
wow.
and it's 2 discs on CD. And a lot of it people say like these are mostly unfinished songs and like weird ideas and stuff, but they were trying to advance the idea of what a Clash song and what Clash music could be and what punk could be. But I think Up in Heaven, Not Only Here is like the best sort of lost in that mix song. It's one of my favorite Clash songs. I mean, there are bigger Clash songs that maybe I like more, but I just wanted to pick something real deep and be an a-hole about this.
Yep, because Danny did not want to do the list thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was hard to only pick one Def Leppard song, but that is my favorite Def Leppard song because when I listen to Hysteria, it's like I feel like I'm falling in love all over again. I don't know, just the feelings that song evokes.
I wish I could give you that feeling. I'm your husband.
But yeah, really hard to just pick one Def Leppard song. So honorable mentions.
Uh-huh.
Caught Up in You by 38 Special. See, I said it right that time, Dan.
Nice. You didn't say .38 special, which you've been saying for years.
I love to mess with Danny. I just do it to mess with him, and I like to call them .38 special since they have the dot in there. Or sometimes I'll go 38 caliber special just to mix it up. Ghost Town by the Specials.
Nice.
Take Me Home Tonight from Eddie Money. And Biggest Part of Me by Ambrosia.
Very cool. I don't have any honorable mentions. Those are the
You
only
only
80s
like those
I
songs,
know,
yeah.
So, that's our list. Those are our lists.
Yep.
Jessica also asked me to help her find a list of other songs about the 80s.
Yeah. I wanted to do like top 5 other songs about the 80s. I was all about the top 5 this
I was
week.
like, there is that Roper song, 1985. We talked about it in the Hello McFly episode of the podcast. But Jessica was like, that's not making my top 5.
So true. Because really, when I stopped to think about it, I was like, obviously 1985 by Bowling for Soup.
I really, really don't like Bowling for Soup.
But then I was like, okay, so we looked at this list and it was 83 by John Mayer, which is a great song. Not a song that I necessarily think about it being like about the 80s. They do mention the 80s. It is about the year 1983.
Mm-hmm. Kid Rock All Summer Long, another song that I don't think of as being about the 80s.
Yeah, it is a jam though.
Apparently it's set in 89, or there's a parenthetical in the title that says 1989. I don't know. This list confuses me, but I don't know. Randy Travis, 1982. Randy Travis was singing about the day I was born. He's like, Danny was born, and someday he'd have a podcast.
I was like, I think I know the name Randy Travis, but I could not put together the music style. I had to listen to it again because I was like, oh, is Summer Girls by LFO about the 80s? And I was like, oh no, it's totally about the 90s. Yeah, they mentioned like Home Alone and a bunch of other awesome stuff.
Denim, the band Denim, who I'm not familiar with, they're speaking my mind with how I'm against nostalgia sometimes because they have a song called I'm Against the 80s.
Oh.
Lyrics include, well, I'm against the 80s bands that couldn't play. I'm against the 80s singers with nothing to say. I heard it on the radio. I saw it on TV. You still went and bought it. Yeah. Sheeple. Ash, which is a band that I do like. They have a song called True Love 1980. And Regina Spektor.
Oh.
Jessica's rival for my heart in college.
Yeah.
Because I had a big crush on Regina Spektor in college.
Yeah, and a picture of her on his MySpace that said the future Mrs. Leary.
That's not embarrassing now.
Oh, MySpace.
MySpace. That was Incel Danny on MySpace.
That was Danny Hates MySpace Danny on MySpace.
Yeah, that's true. So anyway, yeah, that's our 80s talk. So we can get back to talking about this song if you like now.
Yeah. So in my deep dive, I only came up with, I think it's like 3 blog posts. I was actually kind of surprised by that. I thought that would be more. Although one thing that you get in search results when you go Relient K in Love with the 80s is you get a lot of K for Karaoke stuff since they cover a number of 80s songs.
Right.
Over on Ink19.com, July 1st, 2003, under music reviews, this user posted Relient K, 2 lefts don't make a right, goatee. What can I say? I could sit here and slag this band for being unoriginal, generic, corny, and lacking an ounce of talent in their collective bodies.
Oh, no.
But what would be the point?
Arch nemesis.
Relient K is on the verge of being the next MXPX.
Whoa!
I'm willing to bet these guys will be a lot bigger than MXPX ever was. I swear I'm not kidding.
I feel like they about evened out there.
These kids are eating up these guys like there's no tomorrow. And it seems like there's nothing out there to stop these guys from taking over the world. To be honest, I never really liked this band all that much until the day that I saw the only CD I owned by them on eBay. Sold the only CD I owned by them on eBay. It was about a year ago, and I was getting rid of some old CDs I never listened to, including Relient K's All Work and No Play. I put it up thinking I'd get $1 or $2. To my grateful surprise...
That's the only Relient K CD he owned?
Right?
Well, no wonder he didn't think much. Like, that CD's fun and all, but that's not really a representation of the band.
To my grateful surprise, the auction ended at $88. It turned out that the disc was their very rare debut. Funny story, eh?
No, it's not funny. You're an a-hole.
The stuff on that album may be really bad, poorly produced, early
It's
Green
a
Day
demo.
style pop punk. But Relient K has since refined their chops considerably.
Yeah, that's what artists do.
Yep. The recording quality of Two Lefts is absolutely stellar, with each individual instrument sounding like it was given its own personal recording studio. The guitars are crisp, driving, and aggressive, as is the bass. The drums could be a bit louder, but they are still a force to be reckoned with, as the pound and punch with a real kick. The melodic hooks these guys come up with are so sharp that I have several small cuts inside my ears.
So does he like him or not like him?
I don't know.
I hate this person.
The vocals and lyrics are where the band loses me. The singer's voice is so annoying. I seriously want to slip my wrist when I hear him.
That's a little extreme.
Whoa. He's got that terrible whiny voice style. No, absolutely not. He's got that whiny voice style that the guitar player from Blink-182 and the Fools in Sum 41 use. It's so stupid and nasal. I swear too many people have been stroking this guy, telling him how cool his voice is.
What are you...
Whoa!
What?
He's probably never going to change, but that's where you're wrong, friend.
Yeah.
But it sucks so bad that it's almost incomprehensible. I have to tell you, so
This guy's a moron.
Yeah,
It's not just like you're it's not just like you're factually wrong about stuff or whatever. It's just like he's just saying things to say things. It's
yeah.
like there's a big I don't know a lot about video games, but what little I listen to one video game podcast, and there's like a thing in video game journalism where it's like people who don't like or enjoy a certain genre of video game shouldn't ever be allowed to review stuff from that genre.
Right.
That's a little rougher to say about things like music and books, because those should technically be receivable by lots of people, but like I don't know what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying.
I get it. See, for me, the thing that makes or breaks a band for me is the lead singer's voice. That is the thing that will make or break. Like, so Danny loves, and he mentioned them earlier, Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. I don't particularly care for the lead singer's voice. So even though I enjoy the music, it's something about the lead singer's voice that kind of turns me off from the band.
Right.
I love Matt Thiessen's voice. Matt Thiessen has a great voice, and he does nothing but refine his craft and hone it over the years. So to move on, he or she says, now the lyrics. Oh, the lyrics. Let's see. There's a song called In Love with the 80s, which references Tears for Fears, mustaches, and other 80s cliches. There's the song about being in high school and having a cell phone lost while on the Batman ride. The lyrics are pretty much pointless blather that attempt to be ironic and funny, but fall short time after time. However, I do enjoy Hoops, I Did It Again.
Because that Hoops guy is really cool, and I think a song about him is just about the best thing I could imagine.
It actually pays homage to the city I live in, Canton, Ohio.
Oh, that's why he's... Wait a second.
Is this Dan Bacchitis?
Is this Dan Bacchitis, or is this Chris from For the Band?
Oh, I actually live in the snootier part of Canton called North Canton.
Yeah,
I bet you do.
I bet you do.
They reference local things like the movies 4 that will have the local punks peeing in their pants with glee.
What?
I guess it's pretty cool for them to sing about Canton, as most people, Macy Gray from this area, that's in parentheses, tend to ignore their Midwestern roots. Most Relient K fans bought this the day it came out. These guys are going to sell a buttload of records, regardless of what I write. Their songs are incredible, catchy, poppy, and this band is truly unstoppable inside the Christian community. Relient K can do no wrong. and will never do anything wrong. Keep your eyes open for these guys to be in charge.
I bet he loves Collapsible Lung.
Probably. Keep your eyes open. You know, they finally got better, you know? It took a number of records, but they finally got there.
They brought some other people in, and that's what I
Yeah.
thought really they needed.
Deason worked on his voice. Keep your eyes open for these guys to be in charge
This is
of the
how I
country
sound
within
when
the
I'm
year.
writing this.
Oh, and that was written by Daniel L. Mitchell.
Well, that's a deep dive. That's a real deep dive into places I didn't want to go. There's horrible things in that deep section, that deep side of the pool. Well, let's cheer up from that, because this is a song that Relient K has continued to play. As far as I know, I didn't look very close, but I don't think they played this on the Searching for America tour.
Yeah, but it does pop up as an encore song.
And more recently, they've shortened it, because it's like it approaches 4 minutes, I think, and they cut it down to around 2 minutes, because here in
That's unacceptable. I wish they would do that with Deathbed and leave In Love with the 80s in its entirety.
In Love with the 80s should be 11 minutes.
Right? All the references you can fit in.
Actually, that would be pretty interesting to do, like an In Love with the 80s Deathbed thing, where it's like the guy's about to die and he thinks back to his time in the 80s.
I imagine that he's like a Wall Street kind of guy.
Yeah. Oh,
He's 80s guy from Futurama.
yeah. So here in 2013 in New York City, they played Mood Rings and then sort of transitioned into a shorter version of In Love with the 80s. So did you hear the girls are all loving this song?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like,
The ladies want to take the hand of this song and never let go.
I mean, I know I do. It's so good. This song is so good. It's so pure. It's so catchy. I love it.
Then, and this is something I did not know about, but this song, first of all, they played this song a bunch with John and John and Dave Douglas.
Nice.
So I guess around 2007 or so, maybe, what would this be? I mean, I guess it could be like...
When did you say it had kind of a resurgence? Was it 2007 or 2009 or somewhere in there? I think you mentioned
Yeah, a
earlier?
lot. So basically, I typed in Relient K, In Love with the 80s. I also typed in Relient K Pink Tux to see, because people might have titled it either.
Right.
And I found a ton of people taking live video with their 2007 cell phones or camcorders or whatever they had. A lot of them were dated 2007.
Okay.
I don't actually recall right now when Ethan replaced Dave Douglas, but like all of these videos that I've been finding have John and Dave on drums. So I found a bunch, and I saved a couple of them. Like, oh, I guess this one sounds pretty good. I guess that one sounds pretty good. But then I discovered McDonald'sLive.com, which apparently, as far as I can tell, was some sort of thing around 2007 when McDonald's had a summer tour that they streamed online.
Wow.
And so Relient K was apparently a part of this.
Oh, I wonder. I think they've been doing this for a long time. So we actually own, I think, or maybe I put it back, we collect VHS tapes,
Right.
particularly obscure VHS tapes.
Right.
We're those people. So I came across one once that was McDonald's, like, whatever presents, and it was a gospel tape.
Oh, right.
And I'm like,
I don't think we bought that one.
okay.
We
but
put that back on the shelf.
But I'm still like,
I do
oh,
remember
maybe
that.
they just had, maybe
So
McDonald's has a Christian
just loves,
thing.
Yeah, I don't know if, well, I don't even know if this is Christian, but it's called McDlive.com. And it's it says right there on the back, music tour summer 07, right behind them. And I found like a full set from their McDonald's live show.
Wow.
But here's just the song. And one thing
they
that's
got
interesting,
the xylophone out.
yes, because I guess they didn't have a keyboard, right? They have the piano because it's 2007, so that's when Thiessen had the piano and the guitar, and he would
Right.
go back and forth between the two. John Schneck is playing the xylophone,
Nice.
and he's doing that instead of, I guess, the keyboard. So and that's the thing. That's the thing they did this whole tour.
Oh, cool.
Whether it was for McDonald's or anyone else, John Schneck always did the xylophone for the keyboard part.
We saw them in 2007.
We did. I guess they
I'm trying
didn't
to remember if they did this or not.
I don't know. I don't think so. Because I think you would have been excited and remembered because it's one of your favorite songs.
Yeah, but I think I remember them playing it.
So it was Gerald in 1983 in his Ocean Pacific team who got a bloody knee on a skateboard.
Thiessen's got a little rough.
Yeah.
Maybe he had too many McDonald's French fries or a milkshake that day. Gelatinous milk-like substance because he sounds a little rough in this. And it's funny because he's playing piano. Thiessen's playing piano with just his right hand, holding the guitar by the neck in his left, ready to switch the guitar. And Schneck is doing the exact same thing, but he's in his right hand is the stick, the little.
Like mallet?
The mallet, the little the hit-a-do that he uses.
A high five in the backyard that Tuesday night. We're only gonna pierce my left ear. Not been working on his mustache all summer long.
I live on both sides of the stage. It's just a giant picture of a French fry container filled with French fries and the word live. It's like, just so you guys remember where you are, you're watching French Fries Live with Relient K.
Man, I wish we had seen this.
Lots of pausing. Because, yes, look, again, in 2007,
Yep.
the girls love this song 6 years earlier. The ladies love
The 80s.
the 80s. The ladies love the 80s.
What could possibly go wrong? You're the president.
Yeah, it's a very different.
Yeah, tone. And I
tone.
want to say, especially because I said this about the studio version, that this shows, and I've always had this opinion, despite what all these reviewers that we've been finding say, Relient K is not really a pop punk band. Like, they get categorized in that along with other bands like, say, Paramore and stuff, and like, I don't know, like bands that I don't
Right.
really think of as punk bands.
Right.
Bands that are basically pop rock bands. But yeah,
Yeah.
sure, they're a little heavier than other pop rock bands, right? But this song specifically, when you hear this version live, they sound more like a Weezer, like a loose kind
Yeah.
of like Weezer thing without like maybe the crunchy guitar.
Like a poppy alt, sort of.
Yeah. So like when people are like, Relient K has abandoned their pop punk roots, well, they never had pop punk roots. I mean, sure, they had they had punk roots when it
Yeah.
comes to all work and no play. But like when they really got going, and this is especially because this is the time when I was constantly meeting the band in person because they were always coming out to talk to everybody. I was used to the idea that Thiessen would joke about the idea that we're not a punk band, we're not a pop punk band, we're a rock band, we're a pop rock band. And even bands like Blink-182, like nowadays they're like, yeah, sure, we're punk or whatever, but we're just a rock band.
Yeah.
So then here's, I guess this is it's from the same year, so maybe it's part of the same tour. And again, it has John Schneck on the xylophone. This person took this footage a little further back. Oh, we have a specific date. In Baton Rouge on October 29th, so 2 days before Halloween, appropriate.
Nice.
They played this. And I really like this version that I found because it basically, as you'll hear, if you're familiar with Arnold Schwarzenegger audio commentaries, not that you personally have to have put in an Arnold Schwarzenegger DVD and listen to the audio commentary, but it's like a known meme thing.
Oh, wow.
And this is something I had discovered myself once. I'd listened to one Arnold Schwarzenegger audio commentary, and I was so glad the internet discovered this years later. If you listen to any commentary he's ever done for one of his movies, all he basically does is describe to you what you're watching.
That's amazing.
That's like, so you'll find YouTube videos of like the best of Arnold Schwarzenegger commentaries, and he's just telling you, you're watching me shoot this person, and I'm very mad because he did this to me.
We just bought recently the Last Action Hero Blu-ray. I hope it's on there. I'm so excited now.
Oh, it was Total Recall. I watched the audio commentary for Total Recall years ago.
Nice.
And I was like, but that one's funny because he's doing it with Paul Verhoeven. And so it's these two guys with like Eastern European, like German accents because he's Austrian.
That's amazing.
One of them is Austrian,
Yeah.
one's of them German, right? So they got very similar accents. And Arnold Schwarzenegger is just describing. It's like, I can't remember what I think one is like the bad guy shoots the three-breasted lady in the back, and he's like, you'll know this is a bad guy because he shoots the lady, but it's even worse because he shot her in the back. So that's even worse that he shoots a lady but also shoots her in the back. And in my mind, I was
Arnold
like,
I've ever heard.
But in my mind, I'm like, well, it's even worse than that because she's a three-breasted lady. He shoots a lady, and he shoots her in the back, and she has 3 breasts. Anyway, this kind of opens with Matt Thiessen just like generically describing the song as we already would know it. So here we go.
All right, well, long time ago, before some of you guys were even born, there was this magical place called the 80s that I really loved. Maybe even the reason why I have a grotesque mustache right now, who knows, but back in the 80s, it was cool to grow a mustache, you know, Tom Selleck and others. Wonderful stashes. Way better than mine. Yeah, you're not in the front house. Yeah. Anyway, thank you. Also back in the 80s, like, if you're cool, you were a dude, and you knew what was going on, you wouldn't pierce both your ears or 0 of your ears. You would just pierce one, and it would be your left, and it was awesome. And back then, there was a band called Tears for Fears that I really liked as well.
See, user who posted on Song Meanings, clearly Matt Thiessen is not gay. He pierced his left ear.
Yeah, that's right. You pierce the right ear, and that means you're gay.
Supposedly.
There's definitely a Beavis and Butthead episode about that. I remember that.
One of their songs is called Head Over Heels.
So, yeah, so he basically just described a bunch of the stuff from the song. It's not as bad as Arnold Schwarzenegger, but now they're going to start off with a Head Over Heels cover.
I'm excited.
Some girl went, I love this song!
Me too. It was me.
Also, it sounds like he's playing a keyboard type thing.
Yeah.
But then they switch to the xylophone by John Schneck for the
Interesting. 80s. This is like how they do it in the main song as well, but this specific synth, like whatever keyboard sound, always reminds me of this is what the Clifford soundtrack sounds like. The Martin Short movie, which is epic, best movie ever.
Yeah.
But the beginning's like ding 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 ding, just like that. I love it.
Wonderful.
what he did at the end there. Smooth transition.
Yeah. Get it?
Yeah, Head Over Heels is so good. That is the best Tears for Fears song because they use it in Donnie Darko.
Of course. Jessica loves Donnie Darko. We have to rewatch Donnie Darko.
Oh, I love it.
Hopefully it holds up. When's the last time you watched it?
A couple months ago, I watched it when I was sick one day. That was Donnie
Forget
Darko.
my theory that it might not hold up for you.
Donnie Darko was high school Jessica's favorite movie, and it still holds up. And it is a movie that I will often revisit when I'm sick because it's, I don't know, for some reason it's a comfort movie. So is Say Anything. So 80s tie, another 80s tie, and Donnie Darko was set in the 80s. So, oh yeah, I saw something on Twitter about from, I think it was Yeet Home Alabama.
Right. He's been
Something about Say Anything, the band.
right.
And something about Problematic, something, I don't know what I saw, but at first I was like, oh, we're doing In Love with the 80s this week. Did Danny say something about that? And he's like, Say Anything is problematic because, and I went to it because I was like, oh no, is this about the movie? Because that's one of my other, I'm sick and trying to feel better movies that I go to for comfort.
Right. Oh man, Yeet Home Alabama, who has been interacting with us online a lot, he's followed by he or she, wait, hold on. He is followed by 5 Iron Frenzy. Sorry, Yeet Home Alabama. I hadn't actually looked further into your account before. I'm trying to look for that tweet. But I know there was another thing where in a recent Blink 155, Josiah said that they were listening to a Say Anything song because Tom DeLonge was on it.
Oh.
And he was like, this sounds like Owl City working with Marilyn Manson. And I was like, whoa, wait a second. It's just one specific Say Anything song that kind of has this weird, like tinkling piano, like, I'm going to go to the forest, look at me, I'll say anything. I don't know.
I'm not super familiar with the band Say Anything. I was just concerned that Cameron Crowe had been canceled for some reason.
Oh, no.
I think John Cusack's half canceled, maybe. I'm not sure.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Yeet Home Alabama said that he's justified in hating Say Anything because the dude was inspired by Woody Allen. He like the guy from Say Anything sees their music as genre inverting Woody Allen and Charlie Kaufman movies.
Oh, gotcha.
Anyway,
I'm glad I didn't reference Woody Allen earlier because I almost referenced Midnight in Paris because of being in love with a time that you never knew.
Right. So I won't play the rest of this version because it sounds very similar but worse recording than the McDonald's live version. So moving on to the fun fan stuff and etc. First,
nice.
Because Jessica, you love 80s commercials. Let's check this out.
Oh.
You demand quality and durability. Plymouth builds it in. The 550 Plymouth Reliant K. The highest mileage 6-passenger car in America. Match it. Match it for price, celebrity. The 550 Plymouth Reliant K. Backed with a 5-year or 50,000-mile protection plan.
Match it if you can.
The 550 Plymouth. The best built, best backed American cars.
I love it.
That's pop punk right there.
Hell, back in the day when you could get a car for $6,000.
You still can.
A new car.
Yeah. So typing in 80s Reliant, because I always do a search for Reliant K spelled correctly.
Right.
Because I never know what I'll find when
Yeah.
I open up my letterbox tomorrow.
I always forget that in my deep dives.
Right. So I did that, and the car came up because everyone... Also, my process of trying to get listeners, or at least social media followers, of liking everything that's tagged in anything similar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every Reliant K tag,
right.
every Switchfoot tag. I went to Reliant K spelled properly, and I'm like, oh, this is all actually about the car. There might be 1 out of 50 that's about the band. So last week, 2 weeks ago, this week, The Trend had a massive amount of fan music videos, kids and parents and friends,
right.
filming, actually, going everywhere, filming stuff, putting it all together, editing it, not just doing a single shot in their living room or their grandmother's
Right.
bedroom or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Same thing this week, but probably even more. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
Oh my
9,
gosh.
10,
I
11,
think we're already past
12,
the 2-hour mark at this point.
14 fan music videos. We can't watch them all.
No, pick your
But-
faves. We'll come back to this. We should come back and do a part 2 in the future, and we'll talk about movies of the 80s.
So
Or not.
we'll start off with and last week, 2 weeks ago, for This Week the Trend, and some people really responded well to it. I took all of those videos, those fan videos I found, and I did a supercut of them, and people really loved it. Like, actually, David Park was one person who was like, you got to do this every week. And I'm like, well, there aren't videos every week, but I don't have an excuse not to do it this week.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome.
here's one. I guess we'll start off with this one where they put in a lot of effort. Now, just like This Week the Trend, there are certain lyrics that just lend themselves to thinking of one particular thing,
Right.
like the alarm clock, waking
Yep.
up at 3 p.m., and all of these things all these visual tropes that were in all of the fan videos for This
Right.
Week the Trend. This week, everybody's climbing out the window. Everybody's skinning their knee.
Well, it's easy to shoot.
Here's one where they didn't go for the obvious literal representation of each lyric. They actually got a whole bunch of people together and they filmed a prom, like a prom for their video. They put together,
Awesome.
no one else actually put together a prom like this. So this is, in 2006, we have Paul Spaldon.
We've got a group of skateboarders
Right now they're just
tumbling around.
skateboarding.
Oh my gosh, this guy with his Ninja Turtle shirt.
It doesn't start off as clearly, like, there's a lot of effort put into the later part of this video.
Yeah.
It starts off with 3 people just skateboarding around.
Yeah.
I'll actually skip ahead a little bit now, and then they're jamming all together.
wow.
I feel like this might have been like a school or a youth group project because a lot of people
Yeah.
came together to make this.
Yeah, they
like,
even,
it's not
they
just
got
the
an
usual.
old car that they painted 1983
Yeah.
on, or class of 83.
This isn't just the usual like 5 siblings.
Yeah.
3 to 5 siblings making a video together. They're all getting dressed up in their suits and ties. He's got a ska tie. They're all rocking out as a fake band. I definitely think this is a church because the stage that they're on is some sort of like church stage.
Teasing the hair.
There's like what do you call, not banners, what do you call, like, tassels and stuff? Streamers. There's streamers and things in the room. I mean, maybe this is all like...
Oh, just like an 80s music video, we cut to black and white footage for a minute and then went back to color.
Yeah. Everyone's getting in the car and they're actually like in dresses and stuff. Like, people, these kids put actual effort into this video back in 2006, and they're not just literally interpreting the lyrics.
They've got lights
They're
going.
jamming out on inflatable instruments. They pull up to some sort of like prom type place. They're all getting out of their painted car. Then they all start dancing around in a dance-like setting. I'm like, there's so much effort actually put into this video.
Did they just like use like something that was set up for something?
Yeah, maybe
like,
there was already going to
somebody's
be some
Sweet
sort of
16
prom like
or,
thing, and they all decided to shoot a video.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because when you try to get your friends to shoot a video, they're already like, they're into it for the first 45
Yeah.
minutes.
Not even.
But like, to
They
be
don't
like,
want to stick to script. They want to
No.
just do their own thing.
so that's amazing. So that's really great. So that's Paul, Spaldawn, in 2006 with their
awesome.
I Love the 80s video. Here's another one that's a little outstanding from the rest because, again, they don't just interpret the lyrics literally, but they're out on their porch and they've got like all their siblings or something together.
yeah.
There's 4 of them, and like what it looks like the
It looks like
guitar.
they have a really pretty view.
That's what I'm going to say, but they also have like a Guitar Hero drum setup,
Nice,
right? So I think those are
nice.
fake drums, but they have real guitars, and they shot this at Magic Hour on their porch,
Yeah.
with like this really amazing
think-
looking horizon
I
behind
think
them.
they're all rock band guitars, Dan.
Are they all? Oh,
They're
okay.
all rock band guitars. Look at how tiny.
Well, I didn't press play yet. Well, no, that one on the right might be real. Yeah, that's fake. The main guitar guy's got a fake one.
His is identical to the kid next to him.
These two have fake guitars. That's a real guitar on the right. And that's a fake drum set. That's a real guitar because it's got an actual. It's got
You
an
can
actual.
see the buttons. No, you can see the buttons.
No,
They made ultra realistic Rock Band
with
and
the
Guitar
with the
Hero
plug
things.
actually like in the middle like that. This is Meath U Productions in 2009, and it's got that slight like Gaussian blur of a video, like low frame rate. We can't really get a nice good close up of the guitars. Please show a close up of the. Oh, come on. Come on, close up of the guitar.
They don't have enough natural light there.
No.
Here, Dan, look.
All right. She's pulling up eBay listings of Guitar Hero guitars. Okay, it might be fake. It's hard to tell.
They have ones where it's not the distinct color and where it looks more realistic. I'm telling you. Look.
I believe you.
See, look at this. Here.
We had more debate that we actually cut out of the podcast. Yes, that looks very realistic.
It's just it looks too tiny on them.
I guess so. What if they're actually really... No, we don't have...
They're giant kids.
What if they're giant kids? We don't have any other, like,
Honey,
adults
I blew
or, like...
up the kids.
Yeah, we don't have, like... There's no cars or, like, pennies in the shot that we could compare their size to. But it looks amazing, because there's a beautiful Magic Hour horizon behind them, and that's amazing that they shot it at that specific time. Again, yeah, way too many of these videos to watch them all. Oh, but speaking of which ear do you pierce? We will play this one by Dan Holland, which is actually like the best looking one because I think they actually do like legitimate video production as a family or something like that.
I love this painting in the background of a kid in a swing and a puppy staring at him.
Wait a second, where's that? Oh yeah. That's fun.
Then ketchup on the knee.
So this is 2010, but I think they probably had the best video equipment out of anyone because this looks pretty good. Like it's obviously video, but it looks good. Like what does YouTube even put it at? It only goes up to 480p, but it's like a sharp 480p.
Holland Family Studios.
But unfortunately, they put in some real shots of the Breakfast Club movie, which I don't think they
It looks like they just filmed their TV.
There we go. It's just right here.
It's in the mirror.
Yeah, but if you... Right. You know what? I don't know how we're gonna edit that. So I'm like, oh, this kid pierced the wrong ear. And then Jessica's like, it's in the mirror. And I'm like, yeah, but if you turn yourself... Oh, whatever. Okay. So the guitars on the porch were Guitar Hero guitars, and this kid pierced the correct ear. Whatever, Jess.
I'm sorry to yuck your yum, Dan.
Don't be sorry. You didn't yuck my yum. So I'll put together a supercut so people can see all these videos that we can't talk about today.
I'm getting back at you for making fun of my list.
Well, we don't have any... moving on. So we don't have any fandom videos. There is one for Bleach. There's an anime called Bleach. There's one AMV for that. But there's also this. I know you love this, Jessica.
Oh,
The Sims.
nice. The Sims.
I found no less than 2 separate Sims music videos.
This guy looks like our friend John Scully. The Sim.
John Simmy.
Why is he getting... This is like in This Week the Trend. The guy is getting up in the middle of the day from bed.
So there's a bunch of Sims videos,
That's
and I thought she'd
awesome.
love that because Jessica loves The Sims. Well, Vitamin String Quartet,
Yay!
they have their version of this song.
I wish I had walked down the aisle to this at our wedding.
This to me just sounds like later Sonic the Hedgehog games. Like this sounds like a Sonic the Hedgehog game on Xbox 360 or something. That's what that sounds like to me. So then here's an acoustic cover. We find a lot of Jack Johnson style Relient K videos. This is kind of like that. But there's a weird other thing that's maybe like Rivers Cuomo sort of thrown in there, or this person might just be an original. Let's hear Ginger Bones cover. It says, "A Song from My Youth Revisited, In Love with the 80s."
And I'm only gonna pierce my left ear. I've been working on this mustache all summer long. And my favorite band will always be Tears for Fears. And I'm gonna wear a pink tux to the prom. Pink tux to the prom. Pink tux to the prom. Pink tux to the prom.
We've come across Ginger Bones before.
Oh, we have?
I think so. I've heard this for sure.
Well, then you've heard it on your own. I didn't hear it before.
Oh, I
Did
think
you look
we
into
might
it?
have. I don't know. I feel maybe I came across
Maybe you
their
would.
stuff.
They don't have a lot of videos, so I don't think they have another Relient K video.
Maybe I came across it because when we first started talking about the podcast, I think I just happened to look up
Oh, Relient K covers?
Relient K Pink Tux to the Prom covers.
Okay. Well, this is a person I definitely am familiar with. The Martins on YouTube, but I know this person as punk_rock_ukulele_covers on Instagram.
Nice.
And he does a lot of like MXPX ukulele
cool.
covers. So like when I'm always looking at MXPX hashtags, he's constantly coming out with lots of interesting ukulele covers. And I didn't know he has a separate YouTube channel called The Martins. And in 2017, this is his Pink Tux to the Prom cover.
Cutting class through the first floor window. He's driving fast cause he never did a thing slow. And I look up to my big bro, cause in the 80s all the ladies grabbed his hand and couldn't let go. And I'm only gonna pierce my left ear. I've been working on this mustache all summer long. And my favorite band will always be Tears for Fears. And I'm gonna wear a pink tux to the prom. A pink tux to the prom. Do, 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 do. Pink tux to the prom. Do, 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 do. Pink tux to the prom.
What do you think?
That's a beat.
You know what I'm actually thinking of here? We've seen Dan Pothath. I actually don't know how to pronounce his last name. Pothath, the lead singer of MU330.
Yeah.
We've seen him do his solo ska thing. And when he plays MU330 songs, he's just him on a guitar. So he'll do the horn part is like, ba 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 da ba. Yeah,
That's
that
awesome.
thing. So, and when Martin, I don't remember his first name here, is doing this song, and he's like, do, 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 do. I'm like, this would actually make a pretty good ska cover, I think.
Oh.
Someone out there's got to do a ska cover of In Love with the 80s. And two more. There's a guitar cover, which I think is worth playing, because if you wanted to hear the song a little heavier, this is what it might have sounded like. You know what was big in the 80s? Thrash metal. They should have done this just as a thrash metal song.
That'd be awesome.
Slayer, Megadeth. That was 80s.
I can't believe you busted out another
Guitar
cover. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
not big on the single instrument covers.
Or when they play over the song. But the thing is
Yeah.
here, he's doing this like slightly grindier guitar thing. And I'm like, well, that
Yeah.
would be an interesting version to do if they did it like a full band way.
Yeah.
Anyway, I only found one cover on SoundCloud, and it's definitely worth playing because as it loads, we'll see Shelby Coie, Shelby Coie. She did a little vocal cover, and it's only 44 seconds long, and she just keeps changing all the words.
Oh.
But not like a parody. She's just like kind of like making the song her own, I guess. Just like changing
Well, is she
articles
not gonna
and pronouns.
Is she not going to grow a mustache all summer long?
Oh, well, we'll find out. Let's hear her vocal cover.
And it was Jeremy in 1983 in the Ocean Pacific T who got a bloody knee on the skateboard in the half pipe in your backyard that Tuesday night.
So right off, it's like in the Ocean Pacific T in your backyard
Yeah,
that Tuesday
That's
night.
an interesting choice.
There's more.
And I'm only gonna pierce both my ears.
You're going to pierce
You're
both my
only
ears.
going to pierce both ears.
I'm only going to pierce both my ears. Nothing else gets pierced.
And I've been working on this tan skin all summer long.
She's been working on this tan skin all summer long.
And my favorite band will always be Tears for Fears. And I'm gonna wear a pink tux to the prom.
But she is going to wear a tux.
Oh, wow.
She changed a bunch of stuff around, but she's still going to wear a tux.
Could have been pink dress.
Could have been a pink dress, yeah. And I just realized this is called In Love with the 80s, my version.
Oh, okay.
A pink tux to the prom. Cutting glass to the first floor window. He's driving fast cause he never did a thing slow. And I look up to my big sis cause in the 80s all the hotties grabbed her hand and wouldn't let go.
I love that it ends with a breath.
Maybe one day
Oh. That's something else.
I love that version ended with a breath, like, here
Oh,
comes
was that
more,
it?
and then that's it.
Oh.
Because that thing you just heard was the next
wow.
song. SoundCloud just plays the next
She's got
song.
a nice voice.
She does have a nice voice, but it's just odd.
Yeah.
It's just odd that she's just changing words around.
There were really hotties in the 80s. They were like babes and...
Yeah. And tubular dudes.
Yeah.
And bodacious bods.
And maybe Foxy was still brought over and bitchin'.
Yeah. We don't have to bleep that.
Yeah, no.
Because it doesn't have to do with, like, it's just like, it's bitchin'.
Yeah, next week we're going to cover the Dead Milkmen song, Bitchin' Camaro. Because it's okay.
Does Relient K do a cover of that? We'll find out.
Oh,
If
that'd
they
be
don't, we'll
awesome.
ask them.
Go bother everybody on Twitter, Dan.
Yeah. New Twitter campaign. Get Relient K to cover Bitchin' Camaro by the Dead Milkmen. So that's about it for In Love with the 80s. It's almost New Year's 1990. The dream is almost over. We're off into a brand new decade. A decade of Bill Clintons and barcode readers.
More than one.
More than one, yeah. And, what else do they have in the 90s? Pepsi Man and
The internet.
Pokemon. The
I guess they had the
internets.
internet in the 80s, but
Yeah, they're going to have...
only like MIT and stuff.
The Matrix.
Britney Spears.
Britney Spears. John Bon Jovi did acting in a movie. at this point.
Tamagotchis.
Tamagotchis.
What were we talking about?
We were talking about the 80s, and we're talking about Relient K, and I think we're just about done with this super long episode.
Yeah.
Now, this decade's almost over. This decade-long podcast we wanted you to enjoy. And as always, as we start to wrap up, I'm just like losing it, and I don't
Rambling.
know where we're going, and we're rambling.
Well, we just wasted like 3 hours of your life.
No, let the song say that. We're going to say, please contact us. Let us know what you think of the podcast.
Do you think we're like totally tubular, or would you rather we gag on a spoon?
If your parents will let you use the phone, or if you have your own line, you can call us at 402-95-SADIE, which is like our voicemail number. We have an answering machine that you can leave a voicemail, and we'll play it on the podcast, whatever a podcast is. That sounds like it's for nerds. But you can also contact us on Instagram or Twitter, which are both Sadie Hawkins Pod, and our email is sadiehawkinspod@gmail.com. And emails are like also for nerds. But anyway, that's our podcast this week. So we will see you next week when we talk about the song Penny Loafer Saved is a Penny Loafer Earned. No, I thought we're doing a Forget Not Slow Down song next week, I think. We haven't decided what yet.
Tune in next week to find out.
We just wasted 2 hours of